Alright, how's everybody doing? So today I want to talk about this lens right here. This is the Pentacon 135mm f2.8, or it's one of the versions of the Pentacon 135-2.8. They're plentiful, they're inexpensive, and it is a perfect addition to my M42 on a shoestring project. Because they're not hard to find and they're good quality lenses. So let's take a look at the history. This lens was originally introduced to the world as the Meyer Optic Görlitz Orastor 135-2.8 in roughly 1965. Optical construction, 5 elements in 4 groups, and that was a preset lens. That is, it did not have an automatic return diaphragm, which is similar to many M42 lenses of the period. So the optical formula remained constant throughout production. The only thing that changed optically, or obviously or arguably optically, was the number of aperture blades, if you consider that an optical difference. And well, actually many people do. So the other versions of this lens available through the years was the number one, the Pentacon 135-2.8 preset. And that is has 15 aperture blades, and this and the Meyer Optic Görlitz Orastor are often highly sought after by collectors because these early versions, these early preset versions, had 15 aperture blades, as opposed to the subsequent versions, all of which have 6 aperture blades. There are a lot of people like having lots of aperture blades because it gives a rounded appearance to your specular highlights. But other than that, optically, in terms of the glass and the lenses, they're all identical. So if you're shooting a wide open aperture, why pay the premium for the preset version? Other versions included the Pentacon 135-2.8 Auto, that is with the auto return diaphragm, Pentacon 135-2.8 Auto MC, which is what I have. You can see this, it says Pentacon Auto. And here's the MC. MC indicates multi-coating. And the multi-coating, so the multi-coating version replaced the auto version. The 135-2.8 electric. If your lens says electric on it, then it simply has some electrical contacts here in the back, somewhere around here, which communicate aperture data to certain Praktica cameras of the period, which would allow open aperture metering. If you do not have one of those Praktica cameras, you can still use your electric lens on other M42 body cameras. It's just that you'll have to use it in stop-down metering because the method of communicating aperture data was proprietary to Praktica and only worked on a handful of their high-end SLRs. There was also a version called Prakticar in a MC multi-coated version in the Prakticar proprietary bayonet mount. I don't know very much about that mount or the history of the Prakticar series. All I know is that this lens was available in that mount and under that label. So that is the history of this lens. It was originally introduced in 1965. And remained in production through 1990-ish, 1991, when the company was shut down, I think 1990. So this lens was in production for a good 35 years, and they're not hard to find, and they're not expensive. In fact, this version is considered the cheap version because it's not the preset, and it only has 6 aperture blades, which again, for those of you who are obsessed with that sort of thing and are willing to pay the premium, then by all means. But for the rest of us, the optical formula remains the same, so what's a big deal? So anyway, I have shot about 5 rolls of film with this lens. It's all film-a-pan, all black and white, including 2 shoots with 2 different models in a public park. Different parks, different models, and all of those shots were taken at wide open aperture. And I will link to those down below in my Flickr album. You do not need a Flickr account to view the images on Flickr. Anybody can click on the link and see the pictures. And so take a look at those. You can judge for yourself the quality of the bokeh. I'm very happy with it. It is at wide open aperture. It is sufficiently sharp, certainly in the center, and the out of focus rendering is fine. I think it looks great. I think this is a really nice 135-2.8. On this version, you can see it's in really nice cosmetic condition. The focusing's a little bit stiff, but you know it's still workable. It's got a really long focusing throw. This thing is just a very, very, I mean, take a look at, there's your minimum focus and there's your infinity. So that focus throw, it's not quite 360 degrees, but it's getting up there. It's a long focus throw. So some people like that, other people don't. It's up to you. Here's the aperture ring. The aperture ring, like on my other Pentacon lens, is a little loose. I mean, it does have intermediate clicks, but those clicks are pretty smooth. And so this has, well, there's a click stop. Here's it, 2.8, intermediate, and then F4, intermediate, 5.6, intermediate, 8, intermediate stop, click, F11, intermediate stop there, 16. Okay, so it's got intermediate click stops all the way through the aperture range. Which is nice. Although this aperture ring is a little bit loose, and when I shoot this lens, I always recheck my aperture before every shot because it's not uncommon, at least for me, to accidentally knock the aperture setting off while focusing. That happened to me quite a bit. The lens comes from the factory with this nice push-on cover right here. It also has a retractable lens hood, and this lens hood, I believe this lens hood is common to the Auto MC, and Electric. I'm pretty sure all three of these versions had this retractable lens hood. So I'm going to tell you what my one complaint about this lens is. Take a look at this. So it has a 55mm filter size, which is convenient. That's a very, it's easy to find filters for it. But the threads are recessed a bit. You see that the hood, the lip of the retractable hood doesn't quite go down all the way. It doesn't retract all the way to the edge of the lens body. So there's a bit of a lip, even when it's fully retracted. There's a lip right here, and that causes issues with fitting filters. So for example, let's take this filter here. Here's a, this is simply a, what is this? It's a Canon 55mm UV filter. And you can see that it's kind of thick, and this filter has some serrated edges to it. So if I screw it in here, okay. Well, that's okay. That's fine. You can still see there's a good bit of the filter protruding above the hood, and you've got these serrated edges here, so I can easily remove the filter. Okay. However, if a filter is a little thinner, for example, here is an old Hoya HMC. What is this? This is a skylight, skylight filter, and it's thinner than the Canon filter I just showed you. And if I put this down, I'm not going to screw it down because I don't want to. I'm concerned if I screw this in that the filter will disappear down past the ridge of the hood here, and it may be difficult to remove. I'm a little cautious about that because I mounted this polarizing filter. Now, polarizing filters, obviously, they turn. Okay, and I managed to mount this filter on this lens, but then I couldn't remove it. I mean, I was able to, and I don't know what I was thinking. I was able to like press down in order to get the thing mounted. But then when it came time to remove it, I was like, oh shoot. Because when you turn the top part of a polarizing filter, the bottom part stays still. Because that's just the way polarizing filters are. So I had this thing stuck on the lens, and I use a polarizing filter a lot. I live in a very sunny, bright, sunny place. So I use polarizing filters all the time. And I was unable to remove the polarizing filter. So remembering some lesson from high school physics, I took the lens and the filter and I put it in the refrigerator, and I thought, I remember something in physics about different metals contracting at different rates in cold temperatures, and maybe that'll save me. Sure enough, it did. And when I took it out of the fridge, I was able to monkey around with it and get the polarizer off. But excuse me, that was a bit of an adventure. I was afraid that I was going to have a permanently mounted polarizing filter on my 135. So that is my one complaint about this filter. Excuse me, about this lens, is that effectively I can't mount a polarizing filter on it, because I'm not going to risk, lightning striking twice and being able to get the thing out of, put it in the fridge and get it off the lens that way. I'm just not going to go through that hassle every time. So when I shoot this lens, all the images you'll see that I shot with this lens were shot without a filter, no filter of any kind. So take a look at those. I will also link down below to a website in German, which I auto-translated for this video, by a gentleman named, what was his name? Marco Kroger, I believe. It's a fairly recent website, and Mr. Kroger has done a phenomenal job detailing the history of Pentacon equipment, both cameras and lenses, and it's very informative, very technical, and I think that I'm giving you the correct information based on that website. If you can read German, and feel free to double check, and I'm sure that Mr. Kroger knows more than I do, and if I've misquoted him, then please correct me in the comments. I don't mind being wrong, and I don't mind if I made an error relying on machine translation, then well, so be it. Take a look and leave a comment. Tell me if I'm wrong about anything in a significant way, at least in terms of the history and variations. That's what I relied upon. So that's what I can tell you about this lens. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. Yeah. The filter's a little frustrating, but these things are just dirt cheap. You can find these, at least the 6-blade versions. The 6-blade versions are very inexpensive, and optically they're just as good as the 15-blade bokeh monsters if you're shooting wide open. So, that's again, that's a personal choice whether or not you want to spend the money for the 15-blade preset version. All right, so that's what I've got for you today. I hope you found this video helpful and informative, or amusing, or some combination thereof. And if so, please do like and subscribe, and check out the links down below. Take care now. Bye-bye.